So this is what is funny now. Okay, it's not funny, but it is serious, right? Um, did you see all those people that attended the sham inauguration of Museveni? Now, whereas most people might not have noticed, but for me, I believe that we now know the problem that is holding Africa behind. It is the fact that different African leaders embracing the bad behaviors or the criminal activities of their fellow leaders or dictators. You see, this is the problem with the continent today. The problem is never integration, is never Pan-Africanism. The problem has never been that Africa has to come together. That's not the problem. The problem is a clique of individuals who are in power. They misuse their power through corruption, murder, kidnaps, tyranny, and all those sorts of things. Every bad behavior is on 90% of all African leaders. They don't want to leave power, number one. Number two, they are thieves. Stealing everything, even stealing from their own. That's the biggest problem. And now you see leaders coming from other countries and coming to congratulate a person. Oh, thank you for killing Ugandans. Thanks for stealing your own people. And thank you for killing your own people. We embrace you. Literally, that is what happens. The only way the Europeans or European Union kicked out dictators in Europe is through setting standards for the continent. The fact that in Africa we have no standards in terms of our leaders, every Tom, Dick and Harry can do whatever they want, rest assured of backing of other leaders. Because there is this so-called principle of sovereignty that other African leaders will not engage into the situation of the other leaders. I do understand that concept. Because post-independence in the 70s and 80s, through the 90s and all these other periods, what usually happened is whenever a president confronted the other president, it was always due to one president supporting rebels in another country and then the other president retaliates by supporting rebels in your particular country, isn't it? That was the context in which they intervened in each other's, they meddled into each other's affairs. But the fact that the continent has no standards, that is really what is holding the continent back. It is so simple for a leader who comes from West Africa, of which there is no trade between Uganda and Ghana. There isn't much trade between Uganda and Ghana. Oh, there isn't so much flights that are leaving Uganda to Ghana or Ghana to Uganda. Not so much, isn't it? So leaders could easily say, you know what? I won't be part of these schemes. If you kill your own people, I'm not going to work with you. I'm not going to trade with you. I'm not going to be part of that. I'm not going to support that. Only and only if presidents in Africa can be able to take stands against their fellow presidents on issues that entail murder, that entail degradation of human life, that entail dictatorships and tyranny and oppression, then and only then shall we be able to rescue our beloved continent. Now, I saw I think Museveni invited over 40 presidents, but only 7 turned up. But when you look at all the 7 presidents that turned up, they all have something in common with Museveni. You have a saying in Uganda, birds of the same feather flock together, or tell me who your friend is and I'll tell you who you are. something of that sort. But when I sat back and said, okay, fine, he invited 40, 7 came. But I said, Africa has 53 states. What about the remaining, 40-something? Is there anyone I could look into and I say, okay, if this one came, maybe Uganda we would really, this one, I would hold this president in a very high caliber. The problem with Africa today, it is very hard to come around a leader who can take in criticism, who doesn't look at his opponents as enemies, who doesn't look at people who disagree with him as people who are fit or who should be killed or murdered or executed or who should be branded terrorists. It is very hard for me to come across a leader like that in Africa today. And this is where I disagree with most of my Pan-African friends and people who go around the continent trying to praise this kind of behavior. It is these people, the so-called intellectuals, the so-called some groups in Pan-Africanists, who come out and promote this kind of behavior on the continent and give people like Museveni legitimacy to stand on those particular on the stand of those particular issues to justify their own injustices and to justify their own tyranny. This is why I disagree with most people. Especially when people come out and say, okay, Africa needs to come as one. How are you going to do that? When leaders, the so-called leaders that we claim to be, these are the best leaders of Africa, are rubbing shoulders with leaders who are murdering their own people. When you look at people who came to attend the inauguration, everyone have some sort of problems on how they deal with the opposition. They are stealing votes. Some are being told to fix their country. Others have just banned flights because of Mira. Others have just invited the French to come and intervene in their country. Another one was caught in a corruption scandal with his son. Those are the things. 53 states. And then, when these guys go to the OAU and sit to discuss, what do you think they are going to discuss? What do you think? What are they going to talk about when they meet in Addis Ababa? There is nothing that is going to be discussed that is going to benefit the people of Africa or the people of Uganda or these other countries. Every discussion is going to be centered around them. You know what they discuss? Do not many do the affairs of Uganda, I won't many do the affairs of Sudan. Do not many do the affairs of Zimbabwe, I won't get into your affairs. That's what they discuss. Leave me and my people, I will beat them to the pulp and I will be their president for lifetime. So do not ever get involved. That's what they discuss. And then you're like, okay, if we had good times, I'll even attend your inauguration. Irrespective of what you do, I will attend your inauguration. You can kill even 1 million people, but I will come. You be sure, I'll come. And then you see people seated. Oh, you shouldn't tell us what to do. This country so and so shouldn't tell us what to do. This country shouldn't tell us what to do. Yes, we don't need these countries interfering in the affairs of Africa. But when people who are supposed to uphold the integrity and the respect of the continent are the same people that are causing terror, are the same people that are killing people, well, then I don't think these people have the moral authority. I don't think they do not have the moral authority to stand up and start telling other people not to amend into their own affairs, especially if they are giving them aid and all this kind of thing. That is why there's this gentleman called the Professor P.L. Olumumba, I think. He's one of the most vocal Pan-Africans out there. When you sit down with Lumumba and ask him, okay, Lumumba, tell me, what do you think about Museveni? You get Lumumba and sit him down and ask him, Mr. Lumumba, tell me, what do you think about Emerson Mnangagwa? Mr. Lumumba, what do you think about Omar el-Bashir? Mr. Lumumba, what do you think about Salva Kiir? Leave alone just a few examples that he will come today and tell you, okay, what is this name? The late John Pombe Magufuli, this and that, Magufuli Keshoni, and all this kind of stuff. Yes. But, Mr. Lumumba, what do you say? Do you only look at leaders who are in power, but you do not look at leaders or people who are struggling to uproot and take out dictatorships? Why are these so-called Pan-Africanists concentrating so much on heads of state, but do not look at the people who are striving to make Africa better? I now saw Mr. Lumumba heading to Malawi, to a gentleman known as Chakwera, the new president of Malawi. Remember, Magufuli died. When Magufuli died, I don't think Lumumba and Suluhu got on very well. He now went to Malawi and he praised the that gentleman called Chakwera and said, oh, Chakwera gave a very good speech in Malawi. If possible, I would like to meet him. I was like, okay, fine. So they went. There's videos somewhere there on YouTube. You can go and view it. Lumumba met Chakwera and they had a discussion. To me, I started thinking that there is something wrong with the way Mr. Lumumba is conducting his business. And this is not something to go up after him or something. But the day he came to Uganda, stood on national TV, started praising Museveni, saying that Museveni now should be the leader of the East African community, disregarding His Excellency Bobby Wine, disregarding the torment that Bobby Wine has went through, and Lumumba comes out and says that Museveni should take now the leadership, should stand up and be one of the best leaders in East Africa. Is that what you would wish for East Africa? For East Africans to be murdered, abducted, and kidnapped? I was like, there is something wrong with Mr. Lumumba. Either he's looking for a meal card, a paycheck, or something. Because I've never seen Mr. Lumumba coming out and speaking about mostly people in the opposition. In Zimbabwe, there's a brother of ours called Nelson Chamisa. He's being beaten day and night and being done sorts of things. Nelson Chamisa, we will never find Lumumba speaking about Nelson Chamisa. But he would always speak in high regard about Robert Mugabe. But you ask Mr. Lumumba, okay, tell us, Mr. Lumumba, what about Operation Mulamba Fisa, Operation Gukurahundi massacre? What do you have to say about those things? What do you have to say about Gukurahundi? If Pan-Africans decide to hide these sort of atrocities that these people, leaders that we hold in high regard, if they try to hide these challenges they have had, if they try to hide these sort of hiccups, not even hiccups, but deliberate tyranny and deliberate murders that these people have committed, it empowers people, it empowers behaviors like Museveni's behavior to grow and oppress his own people. And there will be no Pan-Africanism. There will be no Pan-African without the people, with the people. If the people are not in support of the idea of Pan-Africanism, it's not going to happen. And if the leaders are promoting Pan-Africanism without the people will not support Pan-Africanism. The people will not support a united Africa. It's not going to happen. Literally, even people have refused to support the idea of an East African Federation. It was taken down. People refused the idea of an East African Federation, of Uganda, Kenya, Tanzania to be one nation. They refused it. The British wanted to do it. It was a British idea. They wanted to put us under only the same boundaries with the Kenyans and Tanzanians. Would it be good for Africa? Would it be good for Uganda and all these countries? Yes, it would have been better maybe. But the founding fathers of all these countries refused it. The Federation of Central Africa, what was it called? The Federation of Rhodesia and Nyasaland. They tried to create it. That was southern Nyasaland, Zimbabwe, Zambia, and southern Rhodesia, Zambia, northern Rhodesia, Zimbabwe, as well as Nyasaland, that is Malawi. They wanted to bring all these countries as one. The British, that's what they wanted to do in the Federation of Rhodesia and Nyasaland. But they refused. The people of Malawi refused. The founding fathers of Malawi refused. The Bandas and these other people. They refused all. And they said no. I don't know the approach of bringing Africa together as a United States of Africa, but from the look of things, it is what do you call that word? What's the word? It is utopic. Because by doing that, I understand that Pan-Africanism has this idea where people have to forego the idea of tribe, the idea of religion, and all these other boundaries, and then we look at ourselves as one, as Africans. But for me, I know very well Africans. I know very well the problems that are affecting Africa as nations. They will affect us as a United States of Africa. Africa it's not just a landmass where you say that, okay, this is the boundaries, we are separated by the ocean, this is a continent, it's a landmass, and all of a sudden all these people are supposed to come together. If you go to Algeria, the blacks in Algeria are still discriminated. What is funny is this: when you come to Europe and America, they all look at you, the distinguishing factor is black and white, right? And they say, okay, oh, this is a black person, that's a black person. The way they look at an African American is the same way they will look at an African immigrant who comes from Africa. And they will say, the only way they can separate is maybe the way you speak, your accent, if it is heavy and something of that sort. But if at all you've grown up from these countries, there's no difference. We're all the same. Now, this is what happens. Amongst Africans in the societies we live in, you will find different people. Oh, these ones are from West Africa, and these ones are from East Africa, and these ones are from Southern Africa. Now, what happens is this: amongst the South Africans, the West Africans, you will find them cutting themselves into two. Oh, they say, oh, this one is Nigerian, this one is Cameroonian, this one is Ghanaian, and then this one is from Gambia, and all this kind of stuff. So it goes on and on and on and on, until they cut themselves up into religion and all this kind of stuff. For me, I believe, in my understanding of if this is to work, we should, number one, set the standard. We should set the standard, starting with the OAU, starting with the African Union, starting with the East African Federation, with the ECOWAS, Economic Community of West African States, starting with the SADC, South African Development Corporation, right? All these federations, they should start with a standard that no dictators. You're not supposed to rule more than 10 years for you to be part of the federation. If not that, we are cutting trade with you, we are cutting ties with you. These people will capitulate. They will bow down and they will accept, and they're like, okay, 10 years, if you change the constitution, if you do this and this and that, you are not going to be part of us. You remain in your country as a hermit country. Now, just imagine, if at all Museveni is being cut off, he's cut off by Kenya, he's cut off by Tanzania. Because Kenya, they change leadership every 10 years. Tanzania changes leadership every 10 years. It is only Burundi, it's only Uganda, Rwanda, and Burundi, and maybe South Sudan, which is not part of the East African community, that are not complying. But all these countries are landlocked, so it means they need the support. If they cannot, you said that, look here, you guys, we want to be in a federation, but the federation is not supposed to be economic. The federation is supposed to be political if it is to succeed. That is why it failed in the very beginning, in the 1960s, when Nyerere, Obote, and all these people started up and they said, okay, let us have an East African community. The East African community totally failed. Because Obote wanted to keep himself in power. The Aminis also, when they came, they wanted to keep power. But on the other hand, Nyerere was on a different bandwidth. Because for him, he never saw himself as a life president. Kenyatta also was holding on to power, and when he left power, he handed it over to a tyrant who was Daniel Arap Moi. It was not going to succeed. However much trade was at its highest. Why did it fail? Because if you create the integrations on an economic bedrock, it is bound to fail before you sort out the political issues. That is my argument. That is going to be my argument for all the time. That if Africa does not sort out its political matters, even if you create as much economic prosperity as possible, we shall always come back to square one. Between the 1960s and 1990s, Africa had unseen prosperity since that time. The population was low. The growth rate was high. The rains were raining all over the country, all over the area, and people were harvesting and getting lots of money. Too much aid was flowing into the country. Civil service was working and all this kind of thing during those days, by the way. But that sort of golden age or golden era, we no longer have that chance. It's no longer here. So the problem back then was not economic. Like these people are trying to say that, okay, let us have an economic integration. No, the problem was political. If you go to West Africa, the Nigerians or the regional security thing known as ECOMOG, Economic Community of Community of Monitoring West African, is it ECOMOG? That thing, it is an organization that was there to create stability in West Africa and that intervened in so many conflicts. Whenever ECOMOG soldiers intervened, it creates some sort of peace and semblance, and it forced presidents out of power. In Gambia, when Yahya Jammeh was defeated in the election and he refused, ECOMOG stood under the Nigerians, although the Nigerians also have their own problems. But the Nigerians know very well that if at all they do not sort out these neighbors and show some sort of regional leadership, the thing might come crumbling and Nigeria might fail. They know that. So when Yahya Jammeh tried to refuse the results from the elections, of which he had earlier conceded, they told him, we are going to intervene. Until they intervened and took him out of power and put this gentleman called, what's his name? Adama Barrow. Now, if Adama Barrow also tries to play the games, they can still intervene and take him out. The same thing happened in Sierra Leone, whenever Charles Taylor and the group, the ECOMOG soldiers were heavily involved in Sierra Leone, in Liberia and all these other places. It is not, the ECOMOG model is not so perfect, but it is a wee bit there. Right? So we meet there. The Nigerians will tell you, okay, we shall cut you off. But also Nigeria has its own problems. That's what I'm saying. Because someone also needs to intervene with Nigeria. Because now, someone will ask a question, okay, what if a country is not landlocked? Yeah, but still, if at all it's not landlocked, still it can be isolated. It is only isolation that will work and pressure these leaders of Africa and create that particular standard. If we create a standard and bring harmony on the entire continent and make sure that the entire, we no longer have dictators, we no longer have tyrants, we no longer want people who want to sleep and die in power, then and only then we shall be able to create an East African nation, a South African nation, and maybe a United States of Africa. Suffice to say, we need to understand that we cannot, even in Pan-Africanism, we cannot just throw away the identity of people's identities. For example, you cannot just wake up tomorrow and say, okay, now we are in the United States of Africa, no tribes. Before the Europeans came here, if you're fighting for Pan-Africanism, Pan-Africanism should be hand in hand with African identity. African identity is not just all about color. It's not just all about being black. That's not it. I do not agree with that notion that being black makes you African. We have identities. If you go to Somalia, these people have a complex sort of identity on how the tribes, the clans, and all these people, how they identify themselves. People are able to recite their lineages going back thousands and thousands of years. If you go to the Kalenjins, that's why you see you have the Habagidils in Somalia, the Kalenjinis, the Chikuyus, the Baganda, the Banyoro, the Basoga. These were loose kingdoms that we had in the continent. These were loose tribes that we had on the within Africa, and people are not yet ready to sever those ties, because that is the only identity they have. That is their identity. So if Pan-Africanism is anti, because we have learned to live within even the boundaries that were created by the West, while still possessing these particular identities. the issue of these particular identities phasing themselves out and people just looking at themselves as Africans, it has to be a self-erosion kind of thing, where people could start feeling like, okay, fine, I subscribe to the Chikuyu tribe, but I don't care whether Chikuyu or not. You get it, yeah? That's how it's supposed to happen. But it's not supposed to be forced onto the people that drop your tribal thing. Because even if you drop it and then people are forced into a United States of Africa, what that calls for is, because you in Zaire only, when an exploration mission went there to record the number of tribes in Zaire, they discovered over 6,000 tribes there. In Tanzania only, I think there are like tribes and then sub-tribes and all that kind of stuff. In Tanzania, I think there is 250 tribes. But how has Tanzania been able to survive and be peaceful to this day with 250 tribes? But a country like Rwanda that has 2 tribes has managed to, they managed to sever themselves in 1994. And you go to a country like Nigeria, okay, they have 3 major tribes, but they almost wiped themselves out. Sort of tribal animosities. So these are issues that are political. They are not economic. These are issues that are political that need to be discussed on how the country should be working together. But then you also have the other political matter of the so-called modern governments that we have today. The only way that you can say that, okay, look here, we want to erase away people's tribes and all this kind of stuff. Maybe you can just go and bomb them and wipe them off the face of the earth, but that would be genocide. It's not how you do things. It has to go back to something very simple. Create a standard on an African standard on how African leaders should conduct themselves. Any leader who does not conduct himself in such a manner, he won't be part of the OAU, or he won't be anywhere. We won't be dealing with him. And this needs like 3 or 4 African leaders who can take that stand, that will say, I am Ayaja Fazil, I'm the president of this and such a country. I'm supposed to rule for 10 years. That's what my constitution says. I'm not going to engage with any tyrant or any dictator. I'm going to sever ties with any tyrant or dictators. And you get like 4 other leaders to pledge. Ladies and gentlemen, as I finish this video, even if you have a common currency, even if you have a common language, even if you have a common everything and you foster all that and you forge all that kind of stuff, without sorting out the political aspect, you can never have a United States of Africa that will stand at peace. Because the identity of Africans is embedded in so many cultural issues that includes food, language, tradition that includes dance, poetry, and all this kind of stuff. How people dress, all those kinds of stuff. So even if you erase and say, okay, people are not supposed to be linked to clans or ethnic groups and all this kind of stuff, people will still be connected to these things through other channels, like language. Are you going to take away the entire language? Even if you bring the entire states of Africa, you have to look at French Africa, Francophone Africa, you have to look at the Portuguese, you have to look at, because different people speak different languages. The entire continent only, I think, speaks around 10,000 languages. If you go to West Africa, you might fail to find food in countries that are Francophone. If the Francophones come to Anglophone countries, they might find it hard. So, what happened in Uganda today? Seeing African leaders endorsing each other and standing with this tyrant and dictator and the murderer, it is really sad. And for any Pan-African who is thinking about United States of Africa, clearly this is not the way to go. And for the people that are championing in the United States of Africa, Pan-Africanism and all this kind of stuff, the likes of Pierre Lumumba, I believe they are not approaching this in the right way, especially when they are praising people like Museveni highly. Thank you very much for listening. And for every leader that came to this ceremony, shame on you. Bye-bye.